Ready.
I can call this emergency meeting of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority together for October 3rd, 2023 at 3 o'clock. Please stand for the invocation of the bank. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be together today. Please guide and direct everything we can do so that all that we do will be acceptable to you to the benefit of our citizens. All the things we ask in Christ's holy name. Amen. I can call this emergency meeting of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority together on October 5th of the United States of America. With the Father, stand. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Cole, Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Hill,
Here.
Chairman Fullwood.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, we are called on to talk about the Port Executive Director Employment Agreement. Who wants to start? Anybody have a
Did you call me?
Huh?
Did you call me?
I did. Wasn't my personal call. I did call the meeting. Wow.
Well, and this is separate from the issue of the meeting, but I was just curious about the process of the meeting, of calling a special meeting. Or is the chairman the only one who can call a special meeting, or?
I think so.
I don't know the purpose of the question or what you're getting at. I mean, through the chair, I requested a meeting because you all need to deal with this issue. The only way you can deal with it is together. The only way you can be together is a public meeting.
Oh, and I support that. I just curious about procedure.
Yeah, I think through discussions with each of you, the idea of a special meeting came up. So kind of time being of the essence, we push forward.
And I think the reason was that David is really not sure what his status is right now. He's continuing to work. And we need to discuss that and whether we need him to continue doing that or what the procedure is going to be and answer the questions that he has about his employment. So we're going to go from there. So who wants to start this process?
Well, we voted to end the agreement with our permanent director as of September 30th. So we deleted that from the budget, is my understanding.
And where did we vote? Rosanna, do you have the minutes of that we voted to terminate him?
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Vice Chairwoman Hill, put in a motion to offer David $30,000.
That's separate. That's not, that was to do something else.
And then I think it was Commissioner Taylor who made the motion to remove the item from the budget,
Correct.
and that passed 3-2.
Correct.
And the budget year is beginning on October 1st.
Correct.
And then looking back to the June meeting, we had given Dave notice that his contract wouldn't renew. He said he wasn't worried about it. I said, we need to go ahead and give you notice because your agreement has some conflicting language. It says there's 60 days at the end of the agreement. If you don't give notice by 60 days before the end, that it would auto renew. But then there's other language that says it's subject to appropriations. We haven't done our budgeting process. And so we need to go ahead and give that notice. And I looked at Dave and he said, I'm not worried about it. So we did give that notice. So I'm just not clear what the question is.
David, is that the way you understand it?
I would just say simply, there's a contract, there's a written executed employment agreement. that specifies the term of the agreement, specifies how the agreement can be ended or terminated, and what the process is for doing it. And as it relates to 60 days notice, it is clear that that notice is provided in writing and submitted to the my personal email address as part of the contract. That notice was never provided. I think there was perhaps some confusion in terms of the conversation in between the meeting. I outlined in an email to all of you a few weeks ago my understanding of the agreement and my position on it. So I'm really here for you to hear the conversation and try to understand why there's a question given that the written.
So each time it came up when we referenced it later in the that we didn't notice, why didn't she say anything at that time?
You know, Commissioner Hill, you know, in fairness, when those conversations came up, they were in the context of Pierre, were giving his financial reports, the status of grants, the status of available funding for my position. And each time, Mr. Levy, I wish you were here, but Mr. Report indicated that there was adequate funding in the grant to continue to fund my position for at least another year. So I have no reason to believe otherwise that position would not be budgeted, would not continue forward. And certainly in those conversations, without my contract in front of me, or even having the opportunity to think about the contract, I was in no way waiving any rights under my contract or and that's why we have written contracts, and that's why we have written notice, so that we avoid these types of confusions and ambiguities.
Do you think it's unethical for you to sit quietly and not say anything with the session is that it's because it's sort of the event? Do you think that's ethical for you to not say anything or to agree verbally when it benefits you?
I don't believe it's a question of ethics. I hope not question my ethics. You know, those are conversations that were not intended. Those were questions that came up again in the context of other conversations.
So if you thought it was a misunderstanding by the board, why would you?
Well, I didn't know that this was until just recently, when there's some question about.
So each time you said you didn't notice, you didn't think that was a misunderstanding?
There was no vote on the board to provide notice. Those are statements made by me. There was no vote, no indication that the entire board understood it either, or that they were supportive of it. We were going to go through the budgeting process. And I'm not questioning, frankly, whether or not I should be terminated or the contract not renewed. That's a decision for the board. All I'm asking is that the rights and privileges that are given to me by the contract in those instances not be followed. That's all.
Your position is that because you didn't understand when we gave you verbal notice, because you didn't understand that occurred 60 days prior to the contract for your positions, that your contract somehow ended automatically, and you're really entitled to 18 weeks of severance. That's your position, and you didn't understand.
No, my position is that I'm entitled to the contract. Look, you're a professional, you're representative.
I'm not going to ask you.
You're a representative. I have spoken.
Would you like to have a council president?
Well, my counsel was not available. My counsel did reach out to Patrick and was not able to speak. But I understand they reached out to Patrick.
Well, we need to have this meeting, if you don't want to participate, you're free to not participate. Would that be a good idea?
That's no,
Patrick?
what we wanted to hear. I'm not here for good ideas. No, I'm not here to advise on good ideas. I can talk to you about the contract.
Because he's unrepresented and that's a problem
His
for us.
decision. That's his decision. I don't represent Dave. We've talked, he knows that. That's entirely up to Dave, whether he wants to do it or not. It's got nothing to do with what I advise. I don't advise David to do one thing or the other. I can tell you from looking at everything, from listening to everything, and from reading everything. Written notice was not provided by this board on provision 5, which is the contract renewal. It was discussed. The discussion was acknowledged. There apparently were subsequent discussions that I was not part of,
And it was memorialized in our minutes.
where it was acknowledged. Written notice under section 5 was not provided directly to Mr. Collins, whether he had a constructive notice of it or not. That could be argued. Written notice under number 6 is also not provided. The motion that was made last month, from my reading of it and my listening to it, had a contingency. It was coupled with an offer for a different consultant type position. That offer wasn't rejected or accepted. It was taken under consideration, and you all moved on. Subsequent discussions have come up regarding the position as they relate to the budget. But by the letter of the contract, and I'm not saying there aren't arguments, I'm not saying you didn't make a case for constructive notice. There was no vote by this board and written notice issued under provision 5 of the employment agreement, which is different from provision 6, which is straight termination. I don't read provision 5 is conflicting. There are other factors available: overfunding, employee performance reviews, which I'm not sure whether it was done or not, and the will of the board itself.
Going forward.
Yes, sir.
I thought,
Go ahead.
I agree with what Mr. Kaufman has brought up today. I agree with what our attorney has advised today, advisements that you made today. Whether it was acknowledged in the past that we turned to him and said, your time is going to be up in 60 days, and he looked you in the eye and acknowledged or did acknowledge or said, I'm not worried about it. That has no relevance. The relevance is what his contract says, and his contract states that he is to be giving a written notice and that he is to be given a severance pay if he's dismissed without due cause. There's no due cause here. We haven't brought up any problems. We haven't voted on it. The only thing that we voted as the board is not to continue the amount of money in our budget for that position. So with that being said, my particular take on it is we should give him his 60-day notice and that we should give him his severance pay.
That is what Mr. Commissioner Paul just described. That was what the client thought about.
On to understand your question. Under provision 6 of the employment agreement, we provide him with 60 days written notice termination. So that would put his termination date, obviously 60 days out, and then also pursuant to that provision, he is entitled to 16 weeks of compensation if he's terminated without.
And is that the same as down in your little agreement? Like, you don't have to terminate someone if you don't renew their contract.
That's true. However, you have to, the contract renews September 30th. So by way of provision 5, if we, for sake of discussion, if we determine that the conversation in June, at the June 14th meeting, and subsequently did not amount to written notice of non-renewal, then the employment agreement has renewed. It automatically renews on September 30th.
So he can just sit there and act like we didn't have those discussions. I mean,
I find it hard that a public board like this needs a written notice, provide written notice to the manager or director, so to speak. When, I mean, we have recorded minutes, we have audio and video of all that taking place, of the mentioning of, we're not gonna renew to the acceptance or understanding of that. So now, because we, somebody didn't, write a letter to Mr. Kaufman stating such, again, it's a public body, public board minutes are, like Commissioner was mentioned, it's memorialized in the minutes.
My only response to that, Commissioner, would be that for the renewal, there was no vote taken by the board. There was a discussion, there was an acknowledgement of the discussion, but the board as a whole did not take action. And so we may be able to argue constructive notice based on a number of facts and exigent circumstances, but from watching the video, from reading minutes, and from subsequent discussion, there was not a board vote on renewal of the contract. And to effectuate action by OPA, this board has to vote. They have to take official action. So that would be my only explanation to what I recognize as, I recognize that, what you're describing.
Well, we were at a budget meeting, weren't we? There was June 12th. Trying to remember that meeting.
June
I
14th.
don't think it was a budget meeting, it was a meeting, and we discussed the budget during that, meeting. Wasn't it a budget meeting, I don't think.
It was the monthly meeting.
Yeah,
But you were not there, Patrick?
I was not.
no. Is it the board's decision not to renew the contract?
I'd like to make a motion to not renew the agreement. If we need to take that action.
Is there anything else you want to put in that motion?
I would like to make a motion that we, provide formal notice to written notice pursuant to the agreement to David Kaufman that we do not intend to renew his agreement,
And
and that his employment will terminate effective September 30th.
that the honor is, let them tell you.
The severance will be determined.
I don't know how you could determine or to be determined when we have a written contract and it states in the contract what it is.
You got, if that's your final motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
As I was saying, I don't. Contract.
I think if we terminate the contract, with that motion, we have to pay the severance.
But I think we can all agree that given the facts and circumstances that we had multiple discussions as a board about our budgeting process and the need to make a decision about an agreement at the budget meeting, that the circumstances, the equities would inform a different result. And so if Mr. Kaufman would like to have his counsel present and talk with Patrick, have, a discussion about what he's going to accept, then
I think you could probably tell us right now.
While we're still in discussion, I'd just like to say, we don't need any more legal bills. Let this go. If this is the decision of the board to relieve Mr. Kaufman from his position, then vote for that. Make the motion, vote with the motions on the floor we're discussing now. But if we do not need to get in to be determined and length of the contract, or it's a written contract, it's very plain, it's there, it states what it says.
And your motion to terminate him from this contract provides that he be given the 60 days of written notice and that he be given the severance pay. And I think that's the contract, and we ought not hold the contract. We've been sued enough. I don't want to get into another lawsuit about this, and I think he has full right to sue if he doesn't agree.
well, what you're talking about is $40,000 plus if you think he should work for us for 60 days, given that the will of the board is to terminate him, I don't know how that would work. I mean, how would that work practically speaking? Have you ever been in an employment relationship where you were given
We don't have
termination
to
and
have,
brought back in for 60 days?
we don't have to have the workforce. We can say, don't come to work. I think that's legal. It's been done before in other places. You can either have somebody work till the end of that time period or not. I feel there's a lot of things going on that David's involved in. I think letting him go right now is gonna put a load on some other people, and I don't know who that would be. Such as the getting the money from
ARPA,
yeah,
the funds.
to pay for, not to take a look at the customs house, the tugboat issue. What are some other things you were working on, David, please?
Resiliency plan.
Resiliency plan,
All right.
MARAD. And those things, so he doesn't have to come to a meeting or unless he wants to report on something, but I think having him finish up those items would be a good thing for us, because who's going to do it?
So how long do you think that would take?
60 days, that's what the contract says, 60 days. Right here.
Why couldn't he transition his work in a period of 2 weeks? Based on the amount of
I
like
don't-
reporting.
Mr. Hill, I don't think you could transition these things that take time in the 2 week period. You're dealing with other people. And I just don't know if that can be done. If it could, fine, but I think we were asking if it can be done in 2 weeks. Resiliency plan certainly could. Nope.
It's more about preserving the records he has, making sure that they're preserved with OPA and that we know where things are. It's not about bringing everything to conclusion because everything will never be brought to a conclusion.
I didn't say conclusion, I said to try to continue putting those things into motion, talking to the people he needs to talk to, handing that off to other people. Somebody's got to work with him to get the information he has, find out who the contacts are for those things and work with the operator. I just think it's necessary. I don't know how long it will take. It could take 2 weeks, could take 60 days. I just don't know. I just don't see what your rush is to get him out of here. We've got to pay him the money. You just don't want him sitting in here. You don't want to look at it. What's the deal? I don't understand.
I would appreciate it if you would refrain from making disparaging supposition.
I'm not making a disparaging supposition.
It's
I'm
not,
telling you what I see, what I feel. All right, the motion on the floor. Any more discussion?
That's one question back. Motion was to not renew. Given that the written notice was not provided, the contract not renewed. Automatically for the year.
I mean, the provision 5 states that the initial term ends on September 30th. And that the two 1-year automatic renewals. It doesn't say when they begin. And it says that they exist, automatic renewals, unless either party provides 60 days written notice. It doesn't say from when that 60 days is, and we're talking about 4 days. So, yeah, I'll figure that out. I can't answer that right now.
Any further discussion?
I just want to make sure I'm clear. The motion is to give 60 days notice of termination or non-renewal.
I don't think I said 60 days. I think it was just to give him the formal written notice so that at least it stops the clock.
Okay, well, either way, it's 60 days, but is it for termination or not?
I think I said no.
To be, to coincide with September 30th, which is already gone by. I just want to make sure I'm clear on the position that we're taking.
And while we're in discussion phase, if you do it for renewal, that's better than doing it for a reason, for a cause. If you want to do a cause, then, yeah, right. So,
So we're talking about provision 5.
Yes.
Well, and to be clear, if the will of the board is to provide some type of severance or transition period, I think we should give them, I think we already gave them notice at this time, for the new time. He said we didn't. He said we didn't have the time to think about it, fair enough. Benefit of the doubt. So let's go ahead and give them the notice that we didn't want his contract to renew on September 30th. We think we already gave them some notice in the meeting, or what did you call it, constructive notice? That we think we already gave them constructive notice, and then to propose a transition period. But that would have to be under different terms.
Okay, well, I want to make sure I'm clear on what your motion is. So
The
you have a-
motion is to provide them a notice of non.
Effective 9/30.
Yes.
Okay.
There's something else in that motion that I'm missing here.
That's what I've written down.
Okay.
the severance,
There wasn't anything about
in your motion, there was nothing, okay, all right, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I think.
You mentioned
I think
earlier,
they said that,
to be determined.
That to be determined.
Non-renewed. Yeah. Okay,
So as I understand it, it's the motion. And I'll need a confirmation of the second. The motion is to give Mr. Kaufman 60 days written notice of non-renewal of the contract effective September 30th.
Yes.
Okay.
and Justin second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no.
No,
No. Good. All right. Let's talk about severance.
make a motion that we pay a severance as to what the contract says. Keep us out of any more legal responsibilities.
I'll second that for discussion. Any discussion?
So the amount that you're proposing is how much?
What is in the contract?
You know.
16,
How much that amount is in dollars?
then whatever's in the contract,
Budget, action.
not in the budget, it would be in the budget, it'd be whatever we want,
What we pay him monthly is in the budget.
correct?
Fine.
So it's about 40,000. All right.
What is it, Dave?
So.
16 weeks. And how much is it a
It's the
week?
maximum of 4
What do you get a week? Figure that out, Luzanne. Monthly.
One moment, please.
41,000.
No comments from the audience, please.
Then is what you figure.
I'm getting one moment.
What is it a month?
So a month, he gets. Sorry, the computer's slow. Gross is $10,833.33 per month.
For 3 months. 41. 3 months would be 41.5. Plus, 4 months, I'm sorry, 4 months.
But Patrick, did you say the termination language only applies to termination, not to non-renewal?
The severance language is in the termination clause.
I didn't know. Okay. All right. So the motion will be,
What, and
no, I'll rescind, I'll take my motion off the floor.
you do what?
I don't think we're obligated if we're not renewing his contract. I don't think we're obligated
Pay him severance.
to pay his severance.
That's not really, Division 6, termination, this is, we're not auditing, we're doing it, so.
Right, there's no severance language in the term provision 5 of the employment agreement. So you have two different separation clauses, non-renewal, which requires 60 days written notice, as we discussed. Termination, which also requires 60 days written notice, plus 16 weeks of severance, if terminated without cause.
I'll rescind my motion.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Cole, did you rescind your motion?
Yes, I did.
So I would like to make a motion that we request that David serve in a transition capacity for 2 weeks, beginning on October 1st. And that we pay him $10,000 for those 2 weeks. In the form of severance.
Or you make a motion, so. She made a motion,
Do I have a
wait on a second.
And that purpose is for him to tie everything up.
Yeah, just to transition his work, he may not take it for the 2 weeks. But that would give him, some additional pay, I don't know, we're supposed to be talking.
We need a second. So we're gonna-
Second. Need a second. I'll second it for discussion.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. Your motion is for a 2-week transition period at the rate of $10,000 total,
Yep.
plus payment under the 60 days notice. If he gets 60 days notice, that means it's 2 months that he's getting paid, whether it's working or not.
Oh, so you're interpreting that to be the
Yeah.
previous motion results in 60 days of pay?
Correct,
It's 60 days notice.
correct.
I gotcha. I thought you
Just
were
like you-
interpreting it that he did.
Like what-
Different 30.
Working 3 months.
That's the notice of non-renewal effective 9/30. That's what I asked. So he's getting 60 days notice,
So he's getting, that's 60 grand or?
whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
This is why I'm finalized.
What in David?
So you're giving me 60 days notice that my contract will not renew that in that 60 days,
Yes,
which is at least 60 more days beyond when the contract will normal. But I don't understand how we want a conversation about renewal. When the auto renewal.
I think the position, David, is that you are aware of these discussions. And so in order to try to turn back the clock and fix this, notice of non-renewal is going to go out to you with the effective date of that non-renewal being September 30th. Given that we're 4 days away, let me finish. Given that we're 4 days away, the motion and the approval by the board was to give notice of non-renewal under provision 5 effective 9/30, meaning you get 60 days notice that the contract is not being renewed. Whether provision 5 says you have to do that before 9/30 or not, I don't know. It doesn't specifically say that, maybe inferred, that was the will of the board. So the question now is, on top of 60 days notice, are you getting $10,000 for 2 weeks of transition period? I just want to make sure I'm clear on where we're headed, because it's not clear to me.
And I'll
Right.
withdraw my 10,000 motion.
Okay, So my understanding is that the board has decided to provide you with written notice of non-renewal with a date of 9/30, meaning there's 60 days written notice. There's nothing in provision 5 that says that 60 days notice has to be received by you before September 30th. It just says that it has to be 60 days notice. So I'm happy to talk to you, your attorney, but that's the will of the board. That's what they voted on. That's where we are. I'm not at liberty to modify those terms.
And that carries 60 days. I'll call it seven,
Sally.
Great.
That's my understanding. Give
So we don't need to
somebody
vote on
60 days
anything else.
notice.
David, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Just ask a question now that would give him the severance that's in the contract or would not?
Give him 60 days notice,
Okay.
not 16 weeks.
60 days of regular.
Okay.
I would like permission with the board to work with David to get all these things that he's been working on, make sure we know where we need to go with those, who we need to talk to. I'm pretty sure I got most of that information, but I'd like to know if you want him to come and report on any of that stuff to the board, or if you want to do it through me or anybody else. Any of you? Yes.
I'd say do your job. Come to our meetings, report.
Up to him if you
If there's,
want to.
you know, well, you're being paid by us, you know, come to our meetings.
I would request that Rosanna could do the backup she wanted to do. She's requested to back up emails. And so she needs direction that she can do that. It's just a password reset to preserve the public records.
What's that got to do with what I'm talking about?
Well, just to preserve public records during that transition period.
Oh, during 60 days. That was,
Yeah.
okay.
Chairman, I have a question. So starting September 30th, he will continue working for OPA. Do I deactivate his email? I need board direction.
So
No.
not till the end of 60 days, Patrick.
No,
You all, you want working
he can't do his business if he's
Got it, okay,
With the notice, it's still essentially could be, yeah, our.
Yeah.
We, so.
You may have-
Everything would just say as.
you may have to communicate with some of those people that you talked to.
So at the end of that 60 days, I will then deactivate his email.
Unless the board decides otherwise, and I don't think it will, but
But you can go ahead and do the backup.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, any further business?
David, it was offered an amount to be our representative for the Florida Ports Council. Would you, over the next 2 months, consider that or give us some sort of indication of where you might go with that? I know you're not prepared now.
I think that's been taken out.
Okay, all right. Well,
So first off, it's 30, and then we'll do 10 at the budget.
10's in the budget. Okay.
All right, anything else to come before the board at this time?
I do, Chairman.
Yes.
I just want to remind the board and everybody that, email is public records. Please do not destroy, delete, or any of that. It's against the law. Thank you. I just want to remind the board.
All right, now I'd like to remind the board, we have a meeting in a month, in a week. On the 11th, 6 o'clock, right here. We will get any things to Rosanna that needs to be on the agenda as soon as possible. Anything else? Any adjourned?